not even 9 yet and I'm already like, I'm late, which I have a similar story with my callback for Shazam. So if you want to hear that.
Rachel Zegler has just learned that Disney is preparing for a second Snow White revival, and she's furious. Her dramatic reaction comes in the wake of a disastrous $115 million box office failure, a blow that many assumed would make Disney move cautiously. Instead, the fuse has been lit. Known for never staying silent, Rachel has gone from playful teasing to full-blown hints of chaos behind the scenes, warning that the next move could blow everything apart. The trouble began back in October 2016, when Disney announced bold, heavily publicized plans for a live-action Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Aaron Cressida Wilson was tapped to write the screenplay, with musical contributions from Benj Pasek and Justin Paul, the duo behind La La Land and The Greatest Showman. Hope soared, and by May 2019, director Mark Webb, best known for The Amazing Spider-Man, was attached to the project. Fans were split, some excited and others bewildered at the idea of Webb handling a story about talking animals and an envious queen. In June 2021, Disney announced Rachel Zegler as Snow White, fresh off her breakout performance in West Side Story. The internet exploded. Some celebrated the overdue diversity, while others clung to traditional images of Snow White. Excitement grew further in November when Gal Gadot joined the cast as the evil queen, embracing her first villain role. By 2022, another twist emerged. There would be no Prince Charming. Instead, Andrew Burnap was cast as a Robin Hood-like figure, signaling Disney's desire to shake things up. But disaster struck just as production was about to begin. In March 2022, a fire broke out on set. Thankfully, no one was injured, but the damage caused delays. Filming resumed through July, with massive sets, elaborate lighting, and heavy use of green screen. Yet early test screenings were underwhelming, forcing Disney back into reshoots by June 2023. Then came the Peter Dinklage controversy. The actor criticized Disney for being progressive in one sense while still clinging to outdated stereotypes by including dwarfs in the story. Under pressure, Disney rebranded them as magical creatures, brought to life with CGI. The move satisfied some, but left others, particularly members of the dwarfism community, feeling robbed of meaningful representation. Rachel herself soon became the center of controversy. While some praised her casting as long overdue progress, critics accused Disney of rewriting history and destroying a beloved classic. Rachel defended her role, highlighting the importance of representation and her excitement to bring Snow White to Spanish-speaking audiences. But her comments during interviews only fueled the fire. In 2022, she called the original Snow White outdated, pointing out that the prince basically stalks the princess and that her story should no longer be about waiting for a man to rescue her. Instead, Rachel argued, Snow White should aspire to leadership. While progressive fans applauded her modern take, traditional Disney loyalists were outraged, accusing her of disrespecting the original 1937 film. Then in August 2024, the situation turned political. Shortly after Disney released the teaser trailer, Rachel posted "Free Palestine" on social media. The post went viral, sparking chaos, especially since her co-star Gal Gadot is openly pro-Israel. Calls for boycotts erupted, and social media became a battleground. Tensions only grew as Rachel's old tweets resurfaced, showing her harsh criticism of former President Donald Trump and his supporters. Online debates turned into a storm of defending, canceling, and attacking, leaving the film buried in controversy. By November 2024, the chaos surrounding Rachel Zegler and Disney's Snow White had become more than just a film issue. It was a full-scale cultural and political battleground, threatening to overshadow the movie itself. Rachel eventually felt pressured to release a statement. She apologized, admitting her imperfections and flaws, insisting that throughout all her efforts, despite mistakes and missteps, she had no intention of hurting anyone. She simply wanted peace. But by then, the damage was done. Rumors began to swirl about tensions on set, particularly between Rachel and Gal Gadot. Stories spread that while Rachel voiced support for Palestine, Gal, openly identifying as Jewish, took a strong pro-Israel stance. Journalists whispered about friction, some even claiming Disney had to increase security for Gal after threats emerged. The two stars were carefully kept apart in the press tour. No joint appearances, no shared sofas on talk shows, just separate interviews and strictly managed schedules. The marketing team scrambled, editing trailers frantically and monitoring Rachel's social media accounts around the clock, terrified of another headline. The campaign grew awkward and strained, more like damage control than promotion. Every public interaction carried the tension of a family dinner after a political argument. On March 21, 2025, Snow White finally opened in theaters across the U.S. and Canada. But the numbers weren't encouraging. The domestic debut was about $42 million, with international markets adding only a modest $45 million, bringing the global opening to roughly $85 million. Considering its massive production budget, between $240 and $270 million, not including Disney's enormous marketing push, the film was already in dangerous territory. By early April, Snow White had earned around $71.4 million in the U.S. and $75.8 million overseas, for a worldwide total of just $147.2 million. The math was brutal. Disney was facing an estimated $115 million loss. Rachel, however, handled the aftermath like a seasoned professional. She publicly defended the project, praising the hard work of the cast and crew, and insisting the film was made with heart and love. She admitted not everyone connected with it, but stressed that the team set out to bring a fresh perspective. Gal echoed her sentiments in her own polished way, reminding the public that filmmaking is a collaborative process and that everyone had given their best. Still, there was no denying the sting. After so much effort, the film had flopped. Critics didn't help. On Rotten Tomatoes, the movie scored only 42% based on 215 reviews, with an average rating of 5.2 out of 10. Most agreed Rachel Zegler delivered a strong performance, but the film itself lacked direction, torn between being a feminist reimagining, a traditional musical, or a CGI-heavy fantasy. Metacritic echoed this, with a lukewarm 50 out of 100. Audiences were similarly unenthused. A cinema score of B+ wasn't a disaster, but it was far from the glowing reception Disney had hoped for.
And it just feels really real now that I made something and people are gonna see it, and it's something that I'm really, really proud of.
The main criticism was that Disney had changed too much. Viewers were left confused as to why Snow White had been turned into a revolutionary leader instead of the classic fairy tale heroine. The ripple effects were immediate. When a project this big flops, it shakes the studio's confidence. Disney quietly hit pause on its planned live-action Tangled, which already had Michael Gracie attached as director and Jennifer Kate Robinson working on the script. Suddenly, its future seemed uncertain. It wasn't just Snow White. The failure cast a shadow over Disney's entire live-action strategy. All eyes turned to upcoming remakes like Lilo and Stitch and Moana, both already in development. The pressure on these projects skyrocketed. Lilo and Stitch, directed by Dean Fleischer Camp, the filmmaker behind Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, was set for release on May 23, 2025. With newcomer Maya Kealoha stepping into the role of Lilo, early buzz was strong. Disney hoped this heartwarming story of family and belonging would avoid Snow White's fate and remind audiences why their classics were worth revisiting. Excitement is building with the upcoming Lilo and Stitch remake, and the cast has the energy to bring it to life. Maya Kealoha steps into Lilo's sandals, bringing the spark needed to keep Stitch from turning the world into chaos. Sydney Agudong takes on the role of Nanny, with Kaipo Dedoit playing David, the laid-back surfer still trying to win her over. But the real showstopper is Chris Sanders himself, returning to voice Stitch, because honestly, no one else could pull off that perfect mix of chaos, growls, and heart. The supporting cast is just as strong. Zach Galifianakis takes on the eccentric Pleakley, Billy Magnuson voices the unpredictable Jumba, and Courtney B. Vance joins as Cobra Bubbles, the government agent with a strangely magnetic presence. Filming in Hawaii gives the movie its authentic island soul, though production faced delays from COVID-19 restrictions and industry strikes. Still, they wrapped in March 2024, setting the stage for a summer wave of nostalgia and heart. And while Stitch is ready to surf into theaters, another tidal wave is forming: Moana. Officially announced in April 2023 and slated for release on July 10th, 2026, the live-action adaptation is directed by Thomas Kail and promises passion, style, and cultural authenticity. Catherine Lagaya, of Samoan heritage, has been cast as Moana, and fans are thrilled by Disney's dedication to cultural respect. Her quiet presence already feels powerful. Audiences joke that she could simply walk across the screen and move them to tears. Of course, the biggest return is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as Maui. His unmatched charisma and booming voice guarantee the film's emotional weight, especially with the return of iconic songs. Lin-Manuel Miranda is back to contribute music, raising expectations for a score that could rival or even surpass the original. Joining the cast are John Tue, Frankie Adams as Chief Tue, and Rena Owen as Grandma Tala, the beloved ghostly mentor. Filming began in August 2024 in both Hawaii and Atlanta, carefully balancing Polynesian authenticity with the practical demands of production. The live-action Moana isn't just aiming to recreate a hit, it's promising a deeper exploration of themes like identity, self-discovery, and environmental preservation. With Miranda's music and a carefully chosen cast, anticipation is soaring. But the looming question remains: can it capture the original's charm, or will it stumble into the same identity crisis that plagued Snow White? Which brings us back to Rachel Zegler. Despite Snow White's failure, Disney has shocked many by moving forward with another reboot. For Rachel, who endured months of backlash, political controversy, and even death threats while defending her modern take on the princess, the news feels like betrayal. Insiders say she feels blindsided, as though the studio has admitted defeat while leaving her to shoulder the fallout. Her career and emotions were heavily tied to the project, and watching Disney push ahead with a fresh attempt has left her furious. Rachel Zegler has endured political criticism and relentless media pressure, only to watch Disney quietly distance itself from her work. The studio's message was clear: "We appreciate your effort, but we're moving in a different direction." Now, the announcement of a second Snow White reboot, this time stripped of revolution and focused more on tradition, bird songs, and family-friendly storytelling, has left her furious. Insiders claim she feels betrayed, especially as Disney brings in a new director known for safe, balanced projects and prepares to cast a fresh face in the role. The move appears designed to erase the memory of the failed first attempt. But Rachel isn't the only one affected. Gal Gadot, who portrayed the evil queen, has reportedly stayed quiet in public, but sources say she too is shocked. Industry experts are also raising red flags. Veteran analyst Marcus Reynolds notes that Disney's decision to reboot so quickly is unprecedented and dangerous, signaling desperation rather than confidence. Investors seem to agree. Following the disappointing Snow White box office results, Disney stock fell by more than 3%, and the latest reboot announcement has done little to restore confidence. With Lilo and Stitch and Moana looming on the release calendar, the pressure has never been greater. Insiders suggest Disney is now implementing strict new rules: stick closely to source material, avoid politically sensitive angles, and double down on the music and magic that made the originals beloved. But this cautious approach comes with risks. Critics argue that Disney's strength has always been its ability to evolve with the times. Retreating into overly safe storytelling could alienate younger audiences who expect bold, modern narratives. For Rachel Zegler, however, this controversy may turn into an unlikely opportunity. Hollywood has always loved a comeback story, and her fierce defense of her Snow White vision has earned her respect in certain circles. Already, she's reportedly lined up new roles, including the lead in an upcoming sci-fi thriller and a supporting part in a film by a major director aiming for award season. According to her agent, Rachel is standing firm, defending both her choices and the modern take on Snow White she helped shape. She may be disappointed, but she's far from defeated. Meanwhile, Disney's entire live-action strategy hangs in the balance. The fate of Lilo and Stitch and Moana will likely determine whether the studio continues its billion-dollar remake pipeline or pulls back entirely. What is certain is that Snow White's Poisoned Apple has left a lasting mark. The box office failure didn't just bruise Disney's finances, it rattled its confidence and reshaped its storytelling strategy for years to come. And for Rachel Zegler, this marks only the beginning of a high-profile battle between corporate caution and artistic integrity.